Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Podcast Assemble, show where you come for your rambling, geeky download. My name's Tommy, and I am delighted, as always, to be joined by my friend and co-host from across the pond. It's our resident shape-shifting owlbear of the pod, DL.
Owlbear.
How are you, mate?
Owlbear.
I was going to say holiday mode DL, and I wasn't sure where to go. Owlbear.
Owlbear, dude.
Sprung to mind.
That's a fucking gnarly predator.
Gnarly predator. Could you imagine?
Like, bears are pretty scary.
Well, it depends, actually.
Owls are pretty gnarly.
Imagine if it was just flapping around and couldn't get off the ground.
Yeah,
it would be the worst.
Obviously,
it could either be the best
configuration of how it looks. But like anything that's a bear is going to be big.
That's actually
You're
fair.
not going to just take like the claw. Like what version of a bear is
could be like
bad?
a little baby bear, little baby bear with wings.
Baby owlbear. Think about like a bear with like 360-degree sight because it's got the owl's neck.
Oh, hectic.
With,
That's terrifying.
Night vision as well.
That's terrifying.
And claws. Yeah, that's a predator.
Still only eats rats. That'd be pretty rough. What the hell? So what have you been up to, buddy? How have you been?
I've been good, man. I've been traveling like everyone gives me shit.
Once again,
everyone gives me shit. They're like, oh, you fucking never work. I'm like, I do work. I just find time to travel. I make the time. And I do spend a lot of money on travel. Like if I retroactively looked at like my spending habits, like the amount of money I spend on travel this year would probably be shocking.
No, that's
But fair. It's a good thing. I don't buy shit though. I don't buy shit.
Yeah.
All I do is spend it on travel.
You got to enjoy your time off, right?
And your life. You got one life, bro.
Well, funnily enough, Kat, my partner said this to me just the other day. She was like, "Those two spend a lot of time on holiday," and I was like, "Well, I think if you think about it, you're really smart about it. You always do it across like public holidays.
Yes.
So you use less annual leave."
Yes, it's an illusion. I don't actually spend this much time off. Everyone thinks I do. It doesn't really help my reputation.
Yeah, the reputation's going
everyone's
nowhere,
like, "Oh, you travel so much." Like at work as well. I'm like, guys, like, you have the leave. I just use it better than you, and I don't have kids. So
yeah, I mean, that's
literally
that's the key part right there.
Don't be jealous
yet.
Yeah.
We had some fun times while you were away. We actually went off to Melbourne and we watched the Formula One. We talked about Drive to Survive a bunch of times.
Did you enjoy it? I saw your story. Was it good?
Loved it. We weren't the people who invaded the racetrack at the end. Apparently one person got hit by one of the cars, which is terrifying.
Did they die?
By the
Obviously
way.
They died.
Well, the cars were going super slow. It was this really awesome finale where there was a big crash and they had to set everyone back up So what they do is when they set everyone up, there were 2 laps left. They do 1 lap with the safety car.
Mm-hmm.
Then they put them all back in their places on the grid where they were at the end of the race.
Wow.
And they do like a 1 final lap, go again, all from like where they are on the grid. It was amazing. But as they all set off, they had a massive smash on the first corner again. So they basically had to stop the race and go, well, that's pretty much it, guys.
We're not doing that again.
So yeah, they weren't going to ruin more millions and millions of dollars worth of cars.
Yeah.
They were just like, well, I guess Verstappen wins. But it was a lot of fun.
Verstappen. God, he's got such a douchey name.
He's such a douchebag.
But it's so good for the sport.
You think?
Meaning like the name fits the sport.
Okay.
Verstappen being like the best Formula One racer, that just sounds right.
Not Lewis Hamilton. I say Lewis Hamilton sounds better personally.
But you get my point. Like Verstappen, like it just sounds like a race car driver.
He does.
And like a douchey one at that.
Well, apparently one of the up and comers is an Aussie dude, and it's really bad because whenever I think of his name,
Daniel Ricciardo?
all I can think of, no, he's about to retire.
He's old, yeah.
All I can think of is Oscar Pistorius, which was the guy, the runner who shot his wife in the toilet. And that's
dude, that guy.
It's so.
Dude, did you hear that criminal like the audio from the trial of that?
No.
He just starts like weeping and is uncontrollable. Like it's like, bro, you did it. Like let's just get on with it.
It's clear
like they had to they held him in contempt because he kept crying.
Oh God.
Yeah.
I mean, that's so lame. Like, come on, dude.
Yeah.
Like, suck it up.
Like very obvious you shot her.
Yeah, of course.
like anyway, I digress. That's awesome.
We digress. Guys, there will be time codes in the description for you to jump around. If you want to hear us chatting all this rubbish about our weeks, what we've been up to, stick around. We're going to do a heck of a lot more of it. But the time codes will, as always, be prescribed by friend and editing genius of the show, Mr. Matthew Bliss of blissery.fm. Visit him at info@blissery.fm. We will give you all of his details at the end of the show. Stick around because he is awesome. DL.
Yes.
What have you been up to, buddy?
Other than avoiding yellow banded sea crates.
Yes. Which apparently incredibly venomous.
Yeah. Very.
I never
black banded. I don't know.
I never remember the difference between venomous and poisonous.
I think it equates to the same outcome. I don't think it
You did.
I don't think it really matters. As long as you know that it's one or the other.
Yeah, just avoid
ideally,
these guys. Yeah,
deadly
That was pretty funny,
neurotoxins,
actually.
deadly poisons, deadly venom. Same
Can
thing.
you explain that Instagram post? Because to me, it was like genuinely hilarious. This is like your partner. Really.
Yeah, we're just walking around like Isle de Pine of the island of Pines in New Caledonia is like this really, really unique island that's got a bunch of pine trees on it and a bunch of like almost like natural. It's like a what's it called when it's like water goes in and out, and you get the mangroves.
A wave?
No, it's like a type of wetland. It's like a wetland, but like beautiful white sand as well, and it creates these canals like all through the island.
Nice.
And they come in at the high tide and go away at the low tide.
Nice.
Or they go out in the high tide, come in the low tide, and basically you can canoe around. You can walk around. The water's like 2 feet deep most of the places. And we were walking around and we saw like a snake, man. And Gail,
venomous and/or poisonous.
I was just hanging out, walking, like looking at the view, getting tan, enjoying it. Gail's like explaining. She likes every single kind of creature. Oh, it's a crab, it's a bird, it's a tree. I'm like, yes.
Yeah, I can see that.
There's many of them. And
they are all around.
And she saw, it's a snake. I'm like, be careful over there.
Yeah.
Like, it's venomous. She's like, no way it's venomous. Like, they would have told us that. I'm like, I don't know, man. They're kind of on island time. You know how long it took me to get that beer earlier? Like, they're not really motivated over here. And so she's getting all close and videotaping it. We get back and it's like a super venomous There's no venomous snake. She was correct in that. But there are very venomous sea snakes.
Interesting.
Like some of the most venomous.
Good. Well, she's not dead, so that's the main thing. But aside of that, in our geeky sphere,
oh, well.
Leading up to, by the way, our 99th episode. I didn't say that at the top. Can you believe that?
I can.
Bloody hell. We have to find something really exciting to do for our 100th. I haven't thought of it yet.
Yeah, we're brainstorming. Any ideas? Hit
us up.
Right in.
Hit us up. At podcastassemble or thepodcastassemble@gmail.com. By the way, as well, talking of that on our Instagram account, we do currently have a giveaway going on. No idea if I've only just put it live, so no idea if anyone's actually going to enter it. But if somebody wants to, you can win a $100 gift card and welcome if you're from that.
Yeah, and that's for the
cinema
episode.
Yes, it is. Correct.
It's
and we'll be announcing
celebration.
If anyone enters, we'll announce it next week.
In commemoration.
Commemoration, yeah. But in our geeky sphere, what have you been doing?
Dude, I've been doing some weird shit. I've been I watched Mandalorian episode 1.
Okay.
And then
that's good. Apparently that's dropping off. The ratings have apparently dropped severely this season.
Wow, I've heard the opposite. But anyway, I haven't seen the ratings, but season 2 I think was really good the way it ended. You kind of forget that there was like a weird season 2.5.
Yeah, go check out my YouTube video on the Mandalorian season 1. Should you watch it? Go check it out.
But there's in lieu of that, I'm starting the new season, and there's a nice little podcast that everyone probably already knows called The Ringer, House of R, and they did a primer episode.
Literally everyone knows.
Yeah, they did a primer episode on The Mandalorian.
Nice,
because they're really big fans of it. The House of R podcast, and they talked about all the things you should watch. They gave like an episode guide to prepare for The Mandalorian based off where they think it's going.
Interesting.
So they gave like basically a study list for the Clone Wars, Rebels, all those animated shows that I was like, I'll never watch. And so I've just tuned into a couple of the episodes.
So just the ones they recommended.
That they've recommended to get the lore and that are good. And it's actually quite good if you focus in on the right areas.
Interesting.
Like the first episode I watched was really, really cheesy and lame. They hadn't really gotten their stride yet in the pilot. But I jumped around to season 2 and 3, and there were some cool episodes.
So you've been watching a bit of Star Wars then? That's fun.
Star Wars, animated Star Wars from whatever that was.
So, I mean,
the 2000s, I don't know.
We talked about this before. They did, I've completely forgot what it's called. They did like an anime Star Wars TV show, and it was like 8-minute episodes. It was on Disney Plus, and each one was a different random story, and it's so animated. It was so good, and apparently they're doing a second season of it. So they do good animated stuff.
And Disney's like curating it like for each show. There's going to be some news I'm sure we'll talk about, but like you can see it's like the Ahsoka Chronicles.
I haven't actually got that in here, so you can put that in.
What's her name? Not Ahsoka.
Ahsoka.
There's the Ahsoka Chronicles, and it's like all the episodes from Clone Wars and Rebels with her in it to prepare you for the show. They're just being really intelligent about it.
Smart. Although that UI is awful.
Disney Plus?
The Disney Plus user interface.
I think it's better. I think it's the next best besides Netflix. All the other ones are shit.
That's only by default. Like that's almost none of them are good.
No, like Binge is terrible. Stan is terrible.
Actually, Stan's not that bad.
They're all pretty
Stan at least
bad.
puts its new stuff at the top.
SBS is bad. They're all bad.
Disney
Plus is significantly better.
It doesn't push the new stuff to the top, and it doesn't seem to have any way of
That's
like
their algo,
recognizing
though.
what you watch. Like
That's their algo.
yeah, it's bad.
No, their algo. You're right. Like what you've recently watched, you still have to go into like the subcategory to see it, which is kind of annoying.
Sucks.
That seems
Real
like
bad.
a simple fix as well.
Well, I watched some interesting stuff while
What
you've
did
been
you
away.
watch?
I'll
Yeah.
give you my first one. I actually went back and rewatched something that I watched a while ago that I really, really want you to watch because I would love to talk about it one day. We rewatched, by the way, you know how I said watching 2001 Space Odyssey, I had to build some serious brownie points to watch that. There's been two movies I've watched recently, one I'll talk about next week, and this one that I've had to build even more brownie points. So
Okay.
I've been watching the shittest movies so I can watch these things. So I watched, again, The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent.
I really want to watch
Nick
that.
Cage film.
There's so many memes about it.
So good. Like I was watching it and I'm still thinking to myself, like, he's crap. Like, he's not a great actor. Like, he's obviously got his charm and his charisma and his niche, but he's not great. Like,
Well, I mean, it just depends what you're looking for.
even
I guess.
playing
Yeah.
himself, like I'm like, come on, but it's such
But
like
Pedro's good.
Pedro's amazing in it, like the whole thing, like, but it's just like I get so sucked into it in a way I don't with some other films. I've watched a couple recently that I think you'll appreciate. Like I said, like the one I'll talk about next week, but this one specifically, like I just got so into it the whole way through. Like the meme scene, I couldn't wait for that to come
meme
up.
scene looks so like the memes that come out of that are freaking hilarious.
Yeah, they're great.
Like, they're really
So good.
And his face is just like so funny.
So
Pedro's
funny.
like,
Yeah, he's real zeitgeist right now. That guy, he's amazing.
killing it, dude.
Give me another. What else have you been watching?
Well, two more I've got for you. Yellow Jackets rewatching season 1.
Because isn't season 2 out?
Yeah, you got to watch this show, dude.
Okay, all right.
I forgot how good it was. And like I'm watching it with Gail.
Remind me the premise.
I'm rewatching it with Gail because I'm like, she'll like this. It's like a all woman cast, like kind of like Lost. She liked Lost.
Okay.
And
even though it ended badly, let's say.
yeah, but like I mean that's a long time.
Yeah,
Television's evolved a lot. Since
Yeah,
then.
it's true.
But my point is like this will be up her alley. And dude, I'm rewatching it and I'm just as excited watching it as I was the first time.
Oh, okay.
Like
right.
it's like that good. I'm
Yellow
excited
Jackets.
to go through
Righto.
it. With her.
Because I could do with a new show, to be honest.
Dude, the premise for the viewers, listeners, is a
And me, because I don't know.
yeah, it's a soccer team in high school that's traveling to state championships. Or like they've recently won. They're flying and spoilers for the first episode, but you know you're gonna learn. They crash.
Yeah.
And it follows.
Is
like
it very Lord of the Flies? Is it that kind of vibe?
It's Lord of the Flies meets Lost meets like.
So there are like sci-fi elements too.
It's unclear at this point. I've only seen one season. It's Lord of the Flies meets Lost meets like fucking I don't know, like Hereditary. Like
oh wow,
like a horror kind of like. There's definitely like a horror element.
I mean, Lord of the Flies,
but it's unclear.
Lord of the Flies is pretty. I can't speak today. That is pretty horror.
But Lord of the Flies is like it's like Lord of the Flies in that it's right now it's unclear.
Okay,
if it's supernatural or if it's like. You know, the psyche of like traumatized people that have kind of been left to die.
Just trying to survive.
Like
okay,
you can't, and it follow. But the cool part is it follows both timelines. Them post when because they do eventually get found. So it's kind of like Lost in that way.
That's
and
fun.
it cuts between them.
Well, Lost wasn't them found though, was it? Weren't they in spoilers for Lost? From
that's the way it ends. But in the show, at one point they get off the island.
Got it.
And it follows them. But even like while they're on the island, you see them before. This is kind of reverses that. So
it's all
where
around
you see
the
them after.
That's fun.
You see them after they've gotten back. So it's very good, and the actors are good. And yeah,
I just wrote it down and put a star next to it. I'll give that a go.
It's a hard one to find though. You got to have a VPN. I can give you my login.
I thought you could watch it over here.
You got to have Paramount Plus.
Oh really? Okay.
And the problem is there's a number of shows on Paramount Plus right now. It used to just be Halo. Now there's a bunch. And I'm like, do I really have to pay for another one?
I think my partner has that. I think she has it because she
gimme.
She got it for a thing, and then I started to watch Halo, and I watched like 2 episodes, and I was like, oh, keep this. And now I'm like,
I want to watch 1882 and like all those like Yellowstone stuff.
Really?
Apparently, it's really good.
You're into a Yellow TV series.
It's a Western.
Right now.
It's a Western, bro.
It's a Western. Have you watched the like current one? Yellowstone? No, I haven't watched it. Look, I've watched bits with the partner, and I just can't. I can't put it with Kevin Costner.
I think I
understand
that,
a word he says.
To be honest, Kevin Costner bugs me as well.
Yeah.
But there's a prequel. There's like 2 prequels that are apparently really
They're apparently pretty good.
Yeah.
One other thing I've watched this week while you've been away. I say this week, these last couple of weeks, managed to scam in a bit of Netflix while the partner was off doing her bits. And I watched a thing you talked about a couple of weeks ago, and we won't go too deep into it because we have already touched on it, but the murders.
Murder.
It's called A Southern Scandal, and obviously, you know, it's about it's a Netflix series, like you've said, and it's this family from like South Carolina who effectively kind of run the town they live in by proxy of being the legal system kind of on their own. It's
since like the 1800s or some shit. Like
so
it's just a really small town and a family that's like dominated it. Basically,
just
paid everybody off.
Well, had a bit of money, shall we say? Because it sounds like the current generation not doing so well.
I think that it's a big family now. So there's some that are, there's some that aren't, but yeah.
So the thing I found most interesting about this was when, and like spoilers for this show, which probably no one's going to watch because it's just one of these nonsense Netflix documentaries. Yeah. But like when the son gets killed, who you think is from the first episode, you're like, it's all about him. And then the son gets like effectively murdered and in dodgy circumstances, to say the very least.
Yeah. And
it's like, wow, they're like it. No one is safe in that town at all.
It is
from this
wild,
family.
Man.
It's crazy. But that's kind of how I imagine that part of the States. Do you know what I mean? Still a little bit like the Wild West in a weird way.
But even that is crazy. Like,
that's
how
nuts.
is that? What's happening?
I can't even
I've never been to that area. So
see, when you told me about it, when you were telling me, and I think you even may have told me it's recent. My brain switched that bit off, and I thought you must have been talking about like the 80s.
No,
but it's like a year ago.
Literally happening. Like he just
went into prison or something, right?
He just got
crazy. You guys should check that out if you have any interest in like a classic, you know, Netflix scandal / murder / serial killer documentary. It's all those things kind of thrown together a little bit, right?
Yeah, it is. It's great.
Go on, give me a last one. What else have you been up to?
The last one, if you want to give me one more, I did finish Shadow and Bone.
Oh, really?
Yeah, on the flight over. I went to Singapore was it last weekend, the weekend before? Forget, it all blends together. And I finished it on that flight.
I don't care.
Yeah, it was. You seemed to care a lot last week whenever we were talking.
I'm an inquisitive guy. Yeah. What can I say?
It was better than I thought. Still bad in the it was a slightly better show than the first season because you got slightly more of the people I liked.
Okay.
That all being said, the end,
the pause,
the twist that wasn't really the twist was terrible.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, it was just terrible.
All right. Well, spoilers for the show because I'm never going to watch it. What was the twist?
So I don't know if you remember the premise of like amplifiers, or it was like they had to find these animals and then they embed them.
Oh, I remember something about that. Yeah, okay. Oh, and he was searching for the stag one.
Yeah, and then the next one was like the firebird and other thing, the sea snake or something. Anyway, like Malcolm, the guy, is the one that helps her find all these things, and they can't find the third one. They find the second one, and they can't find it, and he's struggling to find it, and it turns out it's because like he's it. And he was an amplifier, and the third amplifier wasn't an animal, and
it was him.
The great ancestor of Ben Barnes was like a heretic who made all these weird things and made him. He was an ancestor of him too. And
wow,
it was just really convoluted and quite predictably dumb.
That sounds terrible.
But the Crow storyline is really good.
How did you rate it then? Would you? Okay, as someone who doesn't care clearly, would you recommend going and watching it off the strengths and weaknesses of what you've seen? That's a no.
Well, there's just a lot of good shit on.
Well, I mean, Yellow Jackets to start with. So
yeah, no, Yellow Jackets 100% do that.
Yeah,
it's more just like if fantasy is like a thing you like.
Okay,
if that genre is a thing you like.
Yeah, there are some good fantasy.
There's some interesting parts. There's some interesting ideas in this one that are good, but there's a lot of just tropey nonsense and just like really annoying tweeny stuff that you have to get over.
I think from the first season, I would say if you like fantasy and tween, go for it. But if there's one of those things you're not into...
No one likes tween at our age.
Well, not at our age. That's what I'm saying.
No one likes tween.
I'm saying it appeals to a very specific demographic for the most part, I'd say.
It's not even that tweeny because there's like that one romance. The rest of it's just bad romantic writing.
I think the problem is that it is there isn't a huge amount of it, but it is very like prevalent in the show. It's like quite a central piece
And
of
it's
it.
super like,
and it's real cheese.
it's just cheese and it's really cliche.
So cliche. So touche.
So touche.
All right, my
cliche.
final one then, and I think you'll like this. So this week, I went to the movie cinemas, DL.
Yes.
And I got to see the new John Wick Chapter 4 film. And this has been getting super high praise. Super high praise.
I watched the first one on the
Yeah,
flight
you
as
were
well.
good. Okay,
Yeah,
well, at
catching
some
up.
point we'll get around to it.
No.
See, the first one, okay, right. So the first one's my favorite one because there is a very clear through line. The dog, the wife dies, the dog gets killed.
Poor doggy.
Yeah, well, 100%. And then he's got to kind of he goes after the guys who killed his dog. Makes sense.
It's pretty simple.
And from there, it just kind of gets a little bit twisted. Like you lose that emotional like thread. And the third, and
It was a thread.
yeah,
by the way.
well, exactly. And the second one, it's frayed. The third one, it's barely hanging on. And this one, that thread's gone.
But hasn't he just become nothing to live for by that point, and that's why he's doing this?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, the table is trying to kill him. So the people behind the shady
Hotel.
The people above that, the people who sort of run all of the assassins.
Okay.
They're after him. They want to knock him off. And it's like, it's just, there's only so many times you can see a guy get shot in the head. It gets gratuitous after a while. Honestly, people love this.
That's the way I felt about the first one, but it was I still got through it.
Yeah.
But like,
well, I think for me, like, don't get me wrong, there are some amazing scenes. There is a scene where the camera goes from being like over the shoulder or whatever it is to being like above, like a top-down shooter. Sensational, like amazing movie making. Like the visuals in it, stunning. Like there's this neon aspect to it, which wow, it's good. It's very like it takes a lot of influence from like that 80s, that Drive style, you know, that really neon, kind of darker though. Really like it, like amazing. But you are still just seeing this guy, and there's a bit when not spoilers, like I think it's actually in the trailer. He falls out of like a 3rd-story building, right, at one point, and just gets up and walks it off. And I'm like, I get it, he's kind of Superman in this, like whatever, but man, like he's just a dude.
I kind of liked how the last one, when he got injured, he was injured.
Yeah.
In the first one I saw.
And yeah,
like,
exactly.
And you were still like, okay, like surely someone wouldn't have missed by now, but you could suspend your disbelief there
that much
because he kind of was like getting beaten the fuck up.
And the guns get bigger. And did he in the first one? Did he have the suit that's kind of? Did he have that?
He had a suit that had a body
like Kevlar or whatever. Yeah, and it just becomes nuts. Like he's using it as like a shield at points. Oh man, it's a lot. And
he bought all his stuntmen a Rolex.
Oh yeah, he loved it.
Pretty cool.
Loved, and don't get me wrong, like still love Keanu Reeves. Like,
yeah,
and
of course,
what he had, like he was amazing in it. Like he even cut like a bunch of his own lines, so his character would be more mysterious in this movie. But coming back to
cut as in like said less.
Yes, he said less. Actively said less.
He said like I don't want to say that.
Yeah. No, I don't think he said it that way. I think it was more like to keep the mystique higher. He was like, how about we just have this one line instead of 4 type thing?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's actually like a famously quite low amount of lines. However, if any of you guys know, every year we do our awards at the end of the year. Like a lot of podcasts do this, like best movie, worst movie, all that stuff. We've got a few of our own sprinkled in there. And I am going to go ahead and say this, I think, is an early contender for the Jamie Oliveira Most Up Your Own Ass Director of the Year award. Because it went on for nearly 3 hours. 3 hours. And by the end of it, I was just, I was done by the end of it. I wanted to leave.
Yeah, fair enough.
I was just like, a friend of mine had said to me, like, really let me know what you think. So I went and saw it and it didn't catch me the same way the first couple did. And I was like, fair enough. All right, cool. So like I went in with quite low expectations. And by halfway through, I was like, how what?
Didn't IGN give it like a 10?
Go on for? Huh?
Didn't IGN give it like a 10?
It's getting like
10
out of 10s, 5 out of 5s. And don't get me wrong, it's better than Aquaman, but it's just not. It's just gratuitous. That's the only word I can use for it. It's unnecessary at points. I'm like, just come on.
Yeah, I mean, Scorsese's new movies wasn't it clocking in at like 5 hours or something?
Ugh.
You sent me something. Was it you? Somebody sent me something that was like that movie that I've had on 2 of my most anticipated movie list, maybe 3 if it gets delayed again. We now know why.
Because it's
5.5 hours long.
God, that's too long.
It's something crazy with the new Leo. Like,
well, the partner wants to watch the Babylon movie. You know Babylon. She's desperate to watch that, and I'm just like, it's like 3 odd hours.
Who's in that?
Brad Pitt? It's loads of people. Brad Pitt, Margot Robbie. There's a bunch of people. I can't even remember at this point, but too many peoples.
Right.
All right, DL.
I think that's a good little summary of what we've been doing.
A little summary. Oh my God, we've been talking for ages.
Pretty long, but there's plenty of news to get to.
Well, what we do now is we like to talk a little bit about what's been happening in our spheres. Things we've been sent, things that we have seen throughout the news in our spheres. And we call it Have You Heard? DL, what have you heard this week?
Everything's back.
So much has happened.
Everything is back.
Oh.
Harry Potter is back. Game of Thrones is back. Star Wars is back.
Well,
Game of Thrones never really left, but it's back again.
It's back again. Should we start with something that's gone?
Why not subvert?
Let's subvert this expectation. I love where we're going with this. So, did you hear this week, DL? E3 has been cancelled.
Yeah, I mean,
so
no real reason to exist anymore.
It's been a turbulent time for E3, right? The pandemic didn't help. Obviously, Nintendo dropped out, and Sony dropped out, and then games didn't want to get shown off there. It's just sort of the final nail in the coffin now. Do you reckon it's gone for good?
I don't see how it exists.
What's its purpose now? Like, that's the point. Like, it used to be like, here's the big showcase. Here are the new games.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's just, because of the consolidation that's happened.
Yeah.
In that industry, there's just like less reason to like join a
completely
third-party conference.
And I guess they almost pay a lot of money to go there, like Sony and stuff. So like, why do that when you can just put it on YouTube for free?
It just doesn't really make sense. Yeah,
just drinking a bit of water there.
The monetization model for them probably isn't there.
The ROI is definitely not there. Well, let's talk about things that are back. Talk to me, DL. You saw the Star Wars news.
I mean, there's so much. I'm not going to go through it all.
Much. I didn't get to go through it all. I just kind of went, it's back.
I can give you the highlights.
Give me.
There's a couple new shows and a new movie. One of them, I think the movie is about like...
Isn't it predating the Jedis?
Yeah, it's like the Old Republic, which is a really cool game. They're doing either a movie or a show on that. I forget. And there's another movie that's following... They'd already announced, but now it has a name. So it's gone from Untitled to, my favorite old Untitled. To
your favorites?
A name where it's about like, I don't know if it's called Apostate or
Wasn't that the game? I'm sure there's a game that's that.
There's one that's a movie that's following like the ride. The goal is to like have you empathize with the dark side.
Oh, okay,
like
cool.
Somebody who comes up in the dark side and you understand them kind of thing, which I thought was a cool idea.
That's fun.
The Old Republic is the most exciting one for me.
Yeah, okay.
I think it might be a show. I hope it's a show. Some kind of media set in the Old Republic, which is like basically the dawn of Jedi in general and Siths. And like, it's before the High Republic. It's like way long ago. And then they also announced, most importantly, a new trilogy.
Yeah, of course.
So,
isn't Rey's coming back?
Yeah,
like
Rey's
15
coming
years
back.
In the future?
I don't know what they're going to do, but she's coming back. It seems pretty clear that Mando is going to be...
Well, let's throw this out there.
Yeah.
And one thing you posited last time we talked, and I actually threw it into my Mandalorian video recently, is what if Grogu's the bad guy? What if he becomes the big bad for this new trilogy?
Yeah, I don't know if it'll be this trilogy, but I think
he's getting twisted by what he's seeing.
I think it could be this trilogy, but I think in general that will be a twist they take.
That'd be awesome.
I don't know when they'll do it, because if you think about it, like, if they're not ready for him to age up by the time this new trilogy comes out, I guess they don't. They could age him up in that and have it be way later than The Mandalorian. That's fine. But if they're not ready to like make that call yet,
because isn't The Mandalorian like way long ago? I thought it was.
It's not way long ago.
I thought it was like between Return of the Jedi and.
It's between Return of the Jedi and the new trilogy.
Yeah. How long is that?
But like the Mandalorian could still be alive by the time this new trilogy comes out. So my point is, if
they're all space,
it feels like they're going to have him be in it or involved in some way.
Okay.
If they do that, then it'd be kind of, they're kind of have to make decisions about how that show is going to go now. And I don't think they're ready to do that. So maybe. Or maybe they'll just keep it really separate and you just see someone that looks like Grogu and you're like, oh, it's probably Grogu. And then he becomes a Sith Lord. I don't know. I think it will happen. I don't know if it'll happen in this
I would
series.
like him to be the big bad of that trilogy.
I think it makes sense.
It would be great.
I think also it could be like more gray and you could just have some outcomes.
Do the Darth Vader.
Yeah, you could have some
Bring
outcomes.
Him back.
I guarantee you Mandalorians will be involved.
Oh, almost definitely at this point. Like,
maybe not him, but the Mandalorians will be.
Well, there's a lot of talk that what's his name? Pedro Pascal is no longer, I nearly called him Joel. Pedro Pascal is a bit like unhappy with the direction the Mandalorian's going, and he's less and less actually in the suit. It's more just his voice within this season. So who knows? Maybe he wants to do more stuff. Where are you
hearing this stuff?
It's all online, my friend.
I have not.
I've those
seen
ears
very,
open.
very, very good things about the Mandalorian. Anyway, the point being, if that is the case, then you could end up seeing the story quite really being Mandalorian dies. Grogu's dealing with despair of losing the one thing that looks out for him, pushes him to the dark side.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you missed the one big announcement, which I personally am absolutely buzzing for, which is that Andor Season 2 will arrive
that is coming
August 2024. And that's the news I was waiting for.
I should have said Andor, the best Star Wars.
The only good Star Wars thing
produced.
Yeah, exactly.
No, Mandalorian's good. I disagree. I like Mandalorian. I think it's good. It's not great.
I don't love it. I've seen 3 episodes, and I started the 4th one just the other day, and I just was like, I don't have the patience for this.
It's not.
Because I know exactly what I'm going to get.
It's not good. It's not great. It's good. It's consistent.
You know
with
what
its
it
themes.
is. You know what it is. It's one of those work calls that you know you should be on and you know you should enjoy, but you're just a little bit bored. And if you could just put it on 1.5 speed instead of like normal speed, it'd be fine. Get it over with in 20 minutes rather than 30, 35. I'm fine with that.
I'm intrigued with The Mandalorian. I don't agree.
I'll give you that.
I think that if you know some of the lore around what's happening, like
which I do not.
The more I've learned about the lore and the stuff that they've actually seeded, a lot of the things in The Mandalorian have been foreshadowed and is doing really well. So like the Darksaber has been involved in the Star Wars saga for a long time.
Yeah.
And all like the way they're like kind of handling that to be like this symbol of he can't control the Darksaber because he's basically stuck between dogma of the old sect and like the new sect, and his identity is torn, and you got the Bo-Katan and the other lady who are these conflicting sides, and all of Mandalore has always been about conflict and not being able to get along together, and he's kind of arising as this central figure who probably no one else would really be able to bring these two worlds together
combine the worlds,
other than him because of how his upbringing was so isolated.
Okay.
And he basically learned to love the crazy sect because it's all he had.
The crazies.
The crazy cult. He was stuck with the crazies, so he learned to love them so he can kind of bridge the gap between that because everyone else is like, these guys are crazy, no way. So I kind of like the way they've built that. And some of if you look at how the Mandalorians were in the lore of Star Wars, really manipulated because of their ability to sow conflict within each other. Like because that's like their tendency. The dark side has manipulated them a lot. So to me, I'm intrigued.
Maybe
to see how
Grogu's manipulating everything from the inside.
Maybe there's a lot of mythos. I mean, I'm intrigued to see how it goes. But
we're getting way deep into conspiracy.
Way too much of Star Wars. I'm not even that big of a fan.
Let's talk a little bit about Harry Potter.
100%. How do we feel
about Harry Potter? So the news being, have you heard, DL, that you have, obviously. Warner Brothers have announced just this week, actually the last couple of days.
There's a bunch of rumors ahead of the announcement.
There was a lot of things coming out, but like they have now formally announced that there will be a new Harry Potter series which focuses on a season on each of the 7 books within the arc, which I find fascinating. And none of the originals are obviously coming back because they're not 12 anymore. That would be funny, though.
I was thinking if you were gonna
would be funny.
I was thinking if you were gonna have like one of them play a different character.
I reckon. Do you know what
somebody
I reckon it
might.
is? I reckon it'll be Emma Watson as Professor McGonagall.
I was thinking that, but I don't like it.
I don't like it either.
She doesn't have the bite,
and she's not old enough.
And she's not old enough. She doesn't have the bite. There's probably a better person that is unknown to cast. I think the way to go
the one who was in the original
is literally Rupert Grint playing his dad. Or like an uncle.
That'd be
some kind
funny.
of Weasley uncle as like a cameo.
Just one of the Weasleys.
Yeah, I know.
You know what? I bet you $100 I know exactly what they'll do. I know exactly what
they'll have something.
No, because you know there's a load of flashbacks and there's a load of like times where Harry sees his parents. Daniel Radcliffe will just be his dad. That's exactly what it'll be.
That'd be super dumb.
That would be so bad.
Yeah, I hope they don't do that.
So bad.
Daniel Radcliffe just shouldn't be in this.
Not in the slightest. Bad actor. We've talked about this 1,000 times.
To be honest, though, I find it hard. I was talking to my buddies about this, and we're going to go down a rabbit hole now.
We've been doing this whole episode. It's great.
I do feel like I'm annoyed by Daniel Radcliffe, but I also like Harry's annoying as well.
Yeah, he is.
So, like, is it just that the character is annoying?
I think
you know what I mean, and he just plays it really well, and he's fucking annoying.
No, I just
Harry's obnoxious.
In the other stuff I've seen him, I don't love him. But I think he's written to be like a blank slate, like he is in the books. And I just don't think he's written particularly well for the movies.
I think that there's definitely lines in the movies that make him more whiny and less like believably like frustrated about his situation and more just like a whiny bitch.
And there's
like, and he doesn't, and his way of saying the lines doesn't help.
Not at all.
Yeah.
But there's bits as well that really don't help him. Like, so for example, I think it's the 5th one, when he's starting to try and get into girls, and he sees a girl across the table, and he just like spits out a bit of his juice, and you're like,
you can't go that far.
yeah, okay,
you can't go that far.
You can't.
Get like you don't just burp up your pumpkin juice. Anyway,
so what do you think as a whole? 7 seasons of Potter.
I think
Potter.
Do you want to hear my take, and then I want to hear yours?
Spicy.
I don't even think it's that. Well, it was spicy among my friend group.
Oh, okay.
We have a thread called the Philosopher's Corner where we debate books and really nerdy shit. And I said, look, I'm all for more H-Pot content.
Yep.
It's 10 years too early.
Okay.
It's 5 to 10 years too early.
That's interesting.
It's basically servicing the same generation of fans that the first movies serviced. It's not it's not for a new generation. The main target is the same people. There's not going to be 10-year-olds that like get super excited about this. There might be a few that never have read the book, but like, wouldn't it be better if it was the last generation's kids as well that were being introduced to this, not just the same generation twice?
Well, if you remember, the first book came out in 1997.
Yeah.
We're talking nearly 30 years here. So
but not first book.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the movies. Only 20.
Sure. Good point. Good point. I like where you're coming from, but then maybe it's just us who are a bit behind. Like, I feel like I've got a lot of friends. Majority of my friends back home.
That's what all my buddies said. I'm like, yeah, but a 2-year-old's not watching Harry Potter. So they're going to be 4 or 5 by the time
my friends have already got like 5-year-old kids
they're
back home.
They're going to be 6 or 7 by the time this comes out.
Well, put it this way, right?
You read Harry Potter at 11. I'm saying like it's 5 to 10 years too early. But maybe by the time they actually make it,
it could take time to make it. Yeah.
But like, I just think it's a bit early.
Okay. No, I agree with the sentiment.
Like, none of the Harry Potter characters have kids. None of the actors.
I don't think that's by choice. No, that's harsh.
Surely Emma would be by choice.
I don't. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure how I feel about it. I think yes, it could be a little bit too early, but at the same time, I was so burnt by the last 3-4 movies that I'm down. Like,
gun
give me
to my
new
head.
stuff. Gun to your head and gun to your balls.
Gun to my head. Gun to the ball. The old Inglorious Bastard scene.
Exactly. That's
right.
What I'm
gun to my
about.
head and gun to my balls. I take the content, obviously.
Of course.
If I'm griping, I just wish it was a bit later. But to be honest, there's so much that they fucked up and missed.
Absolutely.
Like, it's going to be way better.
Absolutely.
From an adaptation perspective, HBO they will kill this. They're not going to do it and fuck it up.
They get the right writers.
Who's the showrunner? That's the question. Who's the writer?
Great question.
They haven't announced that, have they?
D&D.
To be honest, they might be good.
By that point, they might be.
No, they might actually be good because all the books are written.
See the end.
The books are written, and they did really well with. They're
really
actually very good at adapting like
really
known shit.
Really good points.
Anyway.
Look, we're getting way off topic. Let's skip on before we run out of time. DL, did you hear this week that there has been huge Marvel trailer news? Huge. There's been 2 big trailers.
Yeah,
they kind of
were like it was barely on the newsreel for me this week because of how much else was going on.
There's a lot else going on. We'll save some of it for next week as well. But so first of all, I'm going to start with the one that I think you're going to like the least. That came out the later one. So there was a new teaser for the upcoming The Marvels movie, which is of course Captain Marvel, Photon. I've forgotten her name, Monica Rambeau, and now Kamala Khan, who is obviously Ms. Marvel. So the 3 Marvels themselves, and they're all in hijinks. They're all having a good time. They're all flipping between their powers. And what do you think? Because we got a lot of reactions about this on social media.
I'll tell you what. Wasn't excited at all. Don't care. I did think the trailer was good.
Yeah, I enjoyed the trailer a lot.
I think the premise of like them switching power, like that's a cool little premise. That's
Flipping
not really,
between.
and like having it.
How long does that last though before it gets annoying?
Agreed.
Yeah.
But it could be an interesting way to like shake up the like formula of a Marvel movie.
Sure. I like it. I once again the same problem I had with just Ms. Marvel. I'm not sure it's for me. Like, I don't mind skipping this one, but I think I will end up watching it in the cinema just because. Like, I'm intrigued to see what they do with this. And the trailer actually had me 99%. I was like, this is actually got me. And then there's just one scene at the end where the bad guy, clearly the bad guy, his arm goes full Venom and goes all like tentacles for some reason. And I was like,
I don't remember that part.
You lost me.
Maybe I didn't watch the full
You
trailer.
lost me.
Yeah. I just it's so interesting how they're like doing each of these, like the choices of the movies they've picked. Like it feels like they're not building any momentum to one thing. Whereas like with the first couple phases, each movie kind of slightly informed the next a bit, and it was the same characters and they interacted. We're just getting a bunch of random characters that have no interaction, and then randomly they just throw them in together, and it feels forced and fake.
Completely.
Like if you had like, you do the Eternals, and then you do Blade, and then you do the
I don't think they'll ever talk about the Eternals again.
But you get my point. Like you do the Eternals, you have Jon Snow character who has this weird mystical thing. You do Blade, which kind of ties to that. You do Multiverse of Madness, which has that horror element. Like you do like the Wanda shit all right around each other. That kind of has a theme that interweaves. Instead, you get like an Ant-Man here, you know, let's attack the China market there.
A horny Hank Pym.
Yeah, like you get like this is
horny for ants.
It's just all, it's so random.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah. And there's a lot of conversation about it and the fact that the order of them being released was so messed up by the pandemic. And don't get me wrong, like I don't think any of them have done anything to assuage what you've said. You're completely right. I think that the fact that they're not interconnected, the characters don't seem to have any relevance to each other for the most part, other than a few disparate ones. It's a bit like, what are you building towards here?
And maybe it is the pandemic, because some of these movies are great, like are fair enough on their own, I guess.
Like I like Shang-Chi, that was fun.
Shang-Chi's great, but it's so random compared to everything. Like it's not connected to anything right now. And I guess it doesn't need to be always that way. I just mean like, it'd be interesting. It'd be nice if like, I've forgotten about that movie.
Yeah. Same.
Like have something else that is in that sphere lead to the next one.
Well, we've talked a lot about this already, and they are absolutely within Disney. So Disney did a bunch of, I don't know if you know about this, they made a ton of redundancies over the past however many months. And one of the areas that they've been sort of like trimming is around like the Disney production side of things. So what they're looking to do effectively is streamline and be like, we need more quality content. We're putting out too much right now. So if you've noticed, a lot of things, especially with the Disney Plus stuff, have been pushed and no longer have dates. So there was an Echo show. So you might have seen her in Hawkeye. There was a character in that, I've completely forgotten her name, but she had her own show. It would have had the Kingpin coming back and all this, and mysteriously no longer has a date attached to it. So I think they're sort of pushing and pulling levers to be a bit like, hey. And also, I told you, Kevin Feige is no longer making a Star Wars movie. That's been canned. So I think they've kind of gone,
why would you have Kevin Feige make a Star Wars movie?
Why not? Maybe he was just like, yeah, I really want to do this.
If he wanted to do it, I guess, but it's kind of also like, dude.
I think they've just been a bit like, dude, you need to focus. Like, get the show back on the road before you start thinking about other stuff.
Fair enough, I guess he's earned
I'm excited.
He's earned the right to go ask for a Star Wars movie.
Well, look, let's talk about the other one then. The other huge trailer that was announced was the Secret Invasion trailer, which is officially coming out on the 21st of June. And oh my God, this looks epic.
I didn't have that same vibe. It was all right.
What? I thought this looked great. Like it did spies, espionage.
It did look great. It was spy espionage, but like I think it will be good.
Who's who? They're all Skrulls. Who knows who?
I just don't even remember like what timeline this is in, frankly. Right. I'm just confused. I was kind of like, I guess I'll figure this one out when it comes out. I'm not going to think too much about it.
Well, Fury was in space.
But it's Fury's own thing, right? It's
just
him.
Correct. And like,
I love Samuel L.
Robin from How I Met Your Mother's coming back. Kobe Schmolders. I said that really strange. Schmolders. She's back. There's a bunch of people coming back. I think Martin Freeman's back in it as well. You know what I find really interesting is in the last few we've seen, and I know it's not really focused on that, but they're obviously building towards that naughty Avengers film, whatever it's called, the Thunderbolts, the bad guys. They've not done anything about that for a little while. That's like there was the mini bit in Black Panther, Wakanda Forever.
Barely remember.
They've kind of they've just kind of pushed that to the back for a minute. It's been like, we'll see where that was.
Yeah, this is really missing like
is that Julia Dreyfus?
Yeah, to be fair, I kind of liked her.
I kind of did too. But it's interesting that that's no longer seems to be a huge priority.
I'm sure it will.
It'll come out.
Put too much shit into it already.
It absolutely will. Look, which one of these two then were you most excited by?
I guess the Skrulls.
So you think Secret Invasion?
Yeah, just because I like the people in it more.
Completely. And I think it's going to be smaller scale. Yeah. It's not going to be the universes at stake. Yeah, whatever it is. I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be interesting. And the Skrulls are they've years and years of comic book like backstory, so they've got to pull something good out of their hats.
Yeah, fair enough.
Well, if you guys want to get in contact with us, hit us up at podcastassemble on Instagram or thepodcastassemble@gmail.com. We love it when you send us news. We got a bunch of reactions to both of those trailers, which we'll hold off for until the end of the show. DL.
Yes.
Do you want to preface our main topic this week?
Our main topic this week is Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves. We said we wanted to watch this a while back, and it came out, and got like some pretty good initial takes. We're like, let's do it. Let's go and watch this movie.
I was so excited to watch this film.
You were?
I was just like, it's different. There's a load of lore that they can
I wasn't
pull on.
excited, but I was like, going in kind of like, this could be good. Like it could be fresh.
Yeah, okay.
It just seemed fresher.
It's definitely fresher. I think we're going to do non-spoilers and spoilers, by the way, for anyone out there. For me, it was a case of I did my classic thing of watching the first trailer and going, all right, no more. This looks good. I like the look. I'm just going to go and see it.
Yeah.
Do you have any like connection to D&D? Have you ever played it? Do you have friends who play it?
I had zero connection.
Yeah, me neither. And I think that's fine because the thing I like about this movie is it kind of straddles the gap between like the hardcore D&D players, the real nerds,
I'm sure they have plenty of Easter eggs.
And that's one thing I find fascinating.
I don't know what they are.
Well, that's it. I think this film will be great on a rewatch when you can watch like 5 YouTube videos that are like things you missed in D&D, and I'll be like, yeah, this is I'm glad I now know that. But before we get it too deep into the DL, do you have a stupid plot summary?
I do, and it was a hard one this week because because
it's a silly movie.
There's a lot of silliness in it, and it was like I actually enjoyed it, so it's harder for me to find a dumb summary for things that I actually enjoy. But I said Chris Pine, right? I guess the right Chris. Did I not fuck that up?
You got the right Chris. Yeah, for once, you got the right Chris.
Chris Pine does his best Witcher Jaskier impression in this fun, well-humored adventure heist that one might confuse for the search for the Fountain of Youth, given how Chris has somehow de-aged his face since the last time we saw him in Wonder Woman 1984.
He's a beautiful man.
Again, he was looking haggard in the last movie. He must have done something.
I wonder if he just... I wonder if because Wonder Woman was made during the pandemic, I wonder if it was like, that's what he actually looks like.
And he just, they've got
the full camera effects on him.
It was more budget,
Yeah, I like that.
Fair enough.
Mine's a little random. I really struggled with it like you did, but it's just... The Avengers and Dragons must assemble to beat back a world-ending threat. Because this, to me, a lot of it was very, very that first Avengers film. Bringing the team together. There's one who doesn't want to do it. It was a lot of that for me in that. It was very heisty. Yeah. But do you want to then guess for me, DL, the IMDb score for this?
8?
Ooh, all right. 7.6. Not bad.
Yeah, I had a feeling it'd be mid-7s, but I think it's like so much better than a lot of the 7s that we get. Like freaking Shadow and Bone's like a 7-8. This is way better than that.
Well, all right then. Yeah. So what do you think then the Rotten Tomatoes score is?
92?
It's 90. And I think that aptly reflects like the between the two of them,
like
the general sentiment. Yeah, really does. But I think you'll be really surprised by what the Metacritic score is. Can you guess it for me?
80.
72, which I think is pretty high for a movie like this. Considering if you think logistically about it, like this must have really struggled for mass appeal when they first announced it in terms of just the name of the movie.
I completely agree. Also, I think like, how do they get so many good people to do this? They, even if you just like read the script, like the script itself is not anything super compelling. Do you think? Like, it's not poorly written. It's well written, but it's not like this like crazy. It's tight, but a lot of what's good about the script is like kind of more the actors. I think.
I think it was well written in terms of the comedic moments. We'll get into it.
I guess my main point was like, to your point of it being mass appeal. I agree, and I'm also like, how do they get some of this cast?
I think the cast makes a lot of this movie. All right, this is directed by John Francis Daley and Jonathan Goldstein. Now, I mentioned the MCU before because they worked in the MCU, which you can really feel coming through in this. They were actually co-writers on Spider-Man Homecoming, which is kind of fascinating. This has got, like you were saying, the cast for this is unreal. It's got Chris Pine, one of the Chris's, as Edgin. It's got Michelle Rodriguez as Holga. It's got Renée Jean Page as Zenk. You'd know him, obviously, from Bridgerton. That's, of course, where you No, Rene Jean Page. But no, he's in Sandman as well. So you, of course, recognize him. There's just so many good actors in this. Like, Justice Smith is great. Sophia Lillis, who you'd recognize from It Chapter 1. Hugh Grant's great in this. It's even got the kid from 65 Dinosaurs in there. You know, the movie we talked about?
Yeah,
the
it does. It does. I noticed that.
So it's great. Like, it's such a good cast. And I completely agree with you. It's really hard to imagine this script being amazing without that cast, because a lot of it leans on Chris Pine.
It leans on charisma.
Yeah, all of them.
A lot of it. And it's like, and just like good line delivery. There is, to be fair, there is some well-written lines. Like the whole character of like Regine Jean Smith is however you say his name.
Jenk, I think.
Whatever. Jenk, that whole character is really funny. Like,
yes.
It's a funnily written character. The whole, like, lots of sequences are really funny. So you're right. I shouldn't have said that. But I guess my point is, like, they still got a lot of good people.
Yeah, they got some real good people.
For a premise of like Dungeons and Dragons, there's no.
I haven't looked at the budget, but it must be pretty big. But
yeah.
Do you want to tell me a little bit about the plot then? What's actually like going on in this film, DL?
I guess
what's happening?
The way I describe it is a charming group of merry kind of thieves, kind of con artists. Nothing too bad where you'd feel real bad supporting them. Almost Robin Hood types, except they really kind of steal for themselves.
I mean,
that's the main difference. Basically, do one job too many.
Yeah.
Do that last job to get out of it.
It's always that one last job, isn't it?
It's always the last job in which
it's like the keys. They're always in the last place you look.
Yeah, it's true. Unless you have a beeper. On them,
which I do not.
Modern. The main reason Chris Pine extends himself is to also get this kind of relic, this totem, this
tome
thingamajig,
bringing his wife back to life.
That can bring someone back from the dead. He wants to bring it back for the dead for himself, for his daughter, who's a part of their merry thieving crew. But he keeps her back, and in doing so, because it's such a dangerous mission, ends up, failing and getting locked away, not seeing her. So we're basically following this group of thieves as they come back together in an effort to go help him find his daughter, but also B, riches along the way, I guess, for some of them. Why else would I don't really remember why some of them do it other than that.
I think they're all just out of luck. I think
they're all kind of out of luck. And they're like, well, we need to do something. Yeah.
It's just a good fun romp. Like it just has hilarity. Like, it's got really well-written characters, really good scenes. I think clearly directors love the source material. Like, I think it's Daly, John Francis Daly. He was in Freaks and Geeks as one of the bloody
Dungeons and
Dragons players, and apparently he loves it. So, like, I like that there's a lot of love for the source material there.
Do you think that this is actually like what how they have like what do they call them, runs or missions in Dungeons and Dragons? It's kind of like they have different like game settings and stories that drive it, I think. Do you think this was like taken from one of those?
I wonder how they set in one of the worlds. Yeah. I don't know if this was like one of the specific
like runs or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know if it was one of the quests, shall we say. I don't think it was. I think it's just this is a nice fun story around these characters that they've created, because I don't think these specific characters are in D&D.
Oh no, I didn't think that. I thought maybe there would have been some elements of this that were like a story and a quest that maybe there probably is.
I know they used a lot of elements from D&D, like we were talking about before, but I think like so many like subtle references that went way under the radar. Like, it's great. There is something that I would love to quickly talk about, and I think some of it's in one of the trailers, but like, how amazing is the opening scene of this film? Like,
yes, is that when they're in the jail?
Yeah, it is just like, talk about building characters and really like getting to know. Oh my, it's phenoanomal. So, do you want to explain a bit about the opening scene?
The opening scene, you actually don't know why they're in jail, but they're in jail.
Not at all. Yeah,
and they I guess the very opening scene is you see the two characters in the cell. The badass chick played by Michelle Rodriguez, who, by the way, I think is awesome.
She's great in this.
In general, I think she's good.
I'm not a huge Fast and the Furious fan.
Well, I mean, but
taking her out of that, absolutely.
She just whoops some guy's ass that gets put into the cell with them because he tries to kind of grope her or whatever. But the main thing is you see Chris Pine and her at a tribunal to get out of jail. And so they go through this whole story about how
they're
got
desperate
there.
for one of the judges to arrive who's not there yet.
Yeah, they keep saying, well, hey, let me delay the story.
Where's he at?
I have this one judge who I know is very, very...
It's so good.
He'll be very partial to my story, right?
Yeah.
And yada, yada, yada.
They go through the whole story of how they ended up in prison.
Yeah, it's a sob story about his daughter, and he's
good.
trying to say, I've learned from my mistakes, but let me get me out of here so that I can actually be the dad I'm supposed to be.
Yeah, yeah.
And the funny part is, as finally he finishes the story, the final judge arrives, and he's like, "Oh, thank God, mate!" And it's this big falcon looking.
He's just a big bird.
It's a big bird.
Yeah, it's great.
And he goes and gives him a hug. He's like, "Mr. Bird, like I've been so excited to see you." And you're like, "Why is he getting all close to him?" And then he just grabs the bird and jumps out the window with Michelle Rodriguez. Basically there was
whole plan.
They never expected to get off. They just wanted the bird to jump out the window to fly and get them there safely.
And the best bit is they didn't actually know if it would work. They didn't know if the bird could fly. Afterwards, they're like, I told you it'd be able to fly to safety.
And the even better part is, as they're falling out the window, they're like, but we accepted your they're like, we believed your story. We accept it.
As an opening scene, and getting to know the characters, the comedy, the heartfelt backstory, like even though you don't find out all of it, like
which is good.
It's so good. I really enjoyed it.
I enjoy, you know what, that upon further thinking, like this movie is pretty much like the peak parts of comedy of Marvel.
Yeah.
Like you forget that it used to be really funny back in the day. It hasn't been lately.
I'm about to release a YouTube video all about that.
And this is kind of reminiscent of that. So it's pretty interesting that it's got two ex-Marvel writers.
Completely. And you can tell that. One thing that I would call out as well is that not only that Marvel sensibility, but in terms of that humor, the director actually had a big influence of Monty Python for the film, and you can really feel that. Like they've come out and talked about it a lot. They wanted like Monty Python type sequences, and they wanted that sort of spoofy fancy element without going like. What they didn't want to do was effectively they didn't want it to become like tropey or become like too deep into the satire.
Yeah,
they didn't want it to become full spoof, but they wanted to make it funny in that,
like have little set pieces.
Exactly, in the same way that like a Monty Python would flip your expectations.
That's what the zombie dig up scene is.
Completely,
it's straight out of Monty
Can we
Python
wait so because I really want to.
But I know, but to your point, it's very that.
It's one of my absolute favorite scenes in the film.
Yeah.
What do you think the stakes were in this? Like what? Like it was. I found it super personal.
It was super relationship driven, personal. Everyone had their little arc, mostly. And then not only that, like when it did get intense, like when it did get serious, it was like kind of such a shock about like how intense, like when like the evil sorceress does something weird, you're like, whoa, that is so jarring because the tone of this movie is not that. Completely. So it kind of like resets your expectations real quick in a good way. And you're like, oh, wow, what's going on?
She's quite scary, though.
Yeah, she was
the bad guy, the sorceress.
What's her name?
Daisy Head.
Daisy Head, yeah.
Safina. I wrote Safina Wizard. She is a wizard. It's that each of the characters actually has a role from D&D. So like Chris Pine's a bard, Michelle Rodriguez is a barbarian, Jenk is a paladin, Justice Smith is a sorcerer, Lilith Smith is a druid, and then she is Safina, who is a wizard, which I find fascinating. She's like a red wizard, I think.
Yeah.
And apparently that's bad. So good. She does it really well, though. She's got that sort of like deadpan.
Frightening, for sure.
What's the chick from Wednesday called? It's got that sort of vibe to it.
Yeah,
you know
it does have that until she goes full fucking crazy person.
At the end.
Yeah, but you're right. Up until that point. Yeah.
So I think it's really nice how they juxtapose the stakes between like this merry band of men trotting along the whole time, and then all of a sudden it like flip and you go, whoa, she's really powerful.
Yeah. And you're like, oh, they did not know what they were getting into.
Absolutely.
No, for sure. Look, I agree with that. I must say, like, I like how this is like magic is magic. Like it's not like this formulaic that you don't really know how it all works.
Yes.
You don't have all the answers. Like it's not this formula and it's kind of unpredictable and mysterious again. And that makes this also pretty cool.
And a lot of it's taken from D&D as well. So like a random one, not spoiling anything, but like there is a scene in the big final battle where there's like a big magic hand, and that is literally ripped from D&D. And I love that amount of respect for the source material. That even though you're like, oh, it's just a magic battle, but it's like, no. I
actually thought that was a really, really cool sequence.
We'll talk about that in spoilers completely. What do you think of the performances?
Yeah, they're all like, Chris Pine does a great job.
Completely.
Yeah, he does a really good job. This is like when you remember he's a good actor. You know, like he's had moments where I'm like, are you even good? But like he is a good actor. He's really good. Michelle Rodriguez is like awesome. I think.
I guess it's interesting because the main part of the film is getting the band together.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's like the crux of the drive towards the majority of it. And like some of the favorites that are in this, we talked about Renee Jean Page's Jenk before. God, he's funny. He's like almost like Drax from Guardians of the Galaxy.
He's very deadpan.
He has,
but in a more intelligent way.
Yes, absolutely,
and like snobby way than Drax. Like
completely,
it's a similar delivery.
And he's only in it for like a short amount of time.
Yeah.
Like one of my absolute favorite jokes in the whole film is when he just walks off in a straight line when he's done, and he just keeps walking.
Gonna walk straight away. Yeah, that was very Monty Python as well.
Very Monty Python, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. But I think everyone was kind of pitch perfect in this. I really liked the druid. So Sophie Lillis as Doric.
She, I thought, was good, but was given like the least amount of stuff. They could have done more like animal humor with her. I thought. You know, like
she can turn into any sort of animal.
She's the real owl bear.
The real owl bear. But apparently in D&D, she wouldn't be able to turn into that. Like it's semantics, who cares? But like in D&D, that's a thing she couldn't do. So it's interesting they went that way with her. But that was like her fighting form. So she takes on a bunch of forms. So like throughout the film, so there's heist elements to the movie. There's different bits. So the crux of it is that they find, we'll talk about Hugh Grant in just a minute, but they find out that there is a thing that they need to get, and it is basically been locked in a vault.
Yeah,
right.
It's a heist movie,
and they utilize the druid's powers, Doric's powers, to turn firstly into a fly and then into a mouse, and then just to get in and out, and it's great,
dude. Yeah, there's I don't want. I guess we'll save it for non-spoilers after spoilers, but like the way they like used magic and the creative powers like to create like problem solving scenarios for a heist was really well thought out and like well architected and kind of just like just really tight. Yeah. You know, like I was like, oh, that's creative. That's a really good way. Like I kind of felt like, oh, if I was going to do a heist, I'd fail. These guys were good at what they did. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. I thought each of the characters in terms of performances, they were so unique. Like we've kind of got to the point with, you know, the superhero stuff where everyone fits a mold of something. Yeah, it is very like, you know what original. I mean? Yeah. And it's got a bit droll at this point. Whereas in this, like, you know, Chris Pine is the snarky one. He's the quippy one, but in a different way. Yeah. Does he actually sing though? Because the voice of the singing, not great. It not great. It also doesn't sound like him. No. I reckon it's somebody else. I don't think it's actually him singing. Actually, one of my favorite scenes in the whole film is when they cast a projection of Chris Pine. That's hilarious. And it like starts to melt. Yeah. It's so good. I think before we move on performances, we have to talk about Hugh Grant, who, by the way, is great in this. He plays like a rogue. So he's like sniveling, like he kind of plays the same thing he plays in The Gentleman. A little bit. Yeah. A little bit. He's quite backstabbing in this. So he's originally part of the team. And when Chris Pine and co, well, it's actually just Chris Pine and Michelle Rodriguez go to prison, he goes off and he becomes the lord of this city. And he's effectively in league with the Red Wizard we were talking about a moment ago, who is, you know, Daisy Head Safina. And they make this weird odd couple. And it doesn't really make sense for her to have chosen him to be the one to go forward with. But it's mostly just because she can manipulate him. Yes. Which is great. And it's really fun. Like, it's a really fun partnership. And like how she scolds him all the time. It's fun to watch. Yeah. Like I enjoyed it. I loved him. I kind of wish they gave him more to do than just be that. Yeah. Okay. I don't know. Like, but I did really like it. I just felt he was super one-dimensional in that way. I was hoping they would give him something else to bite into in the story outside of just being the money-grubbing, double-crossing guy that was being manipulated by the wizard. It's interesting you said that, because I actually felt like the Red Wizard. I thought Safina was the one for me who was a bit one-dimensional. Like, she had good action scenes. I mean, I think that more that dynamic. Like, I like the dynamic between them, though. I thought that was fun. It is fun. It was more just like, would she really even need him? There was something about the public figure. There was something about the plot that just didn't make. I was like, really? Why him of all that? Like, I get your point that he's easy to manipulate. I think he's just the most easily manipulated. But I'm also like, if that's the case, would he really be able to play it off this well? Like, I don't know. Something about like he became the king was one of the weaker parts of the plot for me. but it's a minor.
It was quite rushed, I thought. Like
Yeah.
they got there and he was just the king.
Yeah, it was kind of like, how did this happen in 2 years?
How? Yeah, exactly.
It's
Well,
like,
yeah.
That part was kind of,
And
and
the
I'm
old
like,
king wasn't even dead.
I'm like, if that can happen, then like, and she can make that happen, surely she could just do it herself.
And
It was that was kind of like, what is he bringing to the
manipulate
table?
anyone to do it? Why him? Yeah. And they needed to get into that original vault. That was the point. So the reason why Michelle Rodriguez and Chris Pine were in prison was because they tried to break into a really high security vault to get a thing she needed. I can't remember what it was at this point.
Yeah, it just kind of
the
felt
MacGuffin.
like,
the MacGuffin of the movie.
That original vault was what brought them together, and he brought her in to the crew.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it just kind of felt like he had nothing on her.
Sure.
Like, why would she use him so long?
And I guess that's the only problem I would say with the pacing is that little bit where it's like they're only in prison for like 2 years.
Yeah.
Like Michelle Rodriguez and Chris Pine's characters, and all of a sudden he is the head of the state.
It might have just been better if it was a bit longer.
Yeah, give him 5, whatever it is. You know what I mean? But then I guess it's the point of then how do you age up the daughter? Yeah, that's the problem with that, which is kind of fair enough in a way, I get. But that's the only thing with for the rest of for me though, I thought the pacing was great. Yeah. I thought they took logical steps. They had a smaller fight, then it built to
it was a really tight movie.
Tight. Yeah. Tight's a great word for it. So let's talk about the cinematography and world building then. I thought it was really amazing how entrenched they stayed in all of the lore of D&D without like overwhelming like general audiences. Like I personally sat there the whole time and at no point was I like, God, this is so nerdy.
No, it was
like,
really well done.
They just threw it in.
Yeah, it was really well done. I agree. I have nothing else to add. It was just like such a, like you never felt like you needed to watch D&D.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, they traveled to a bunch of like well-known locations. Like it's set within the Forgotten Realms, which
who cares?
I have no idea what that means.
Doesn't matter to me.
But it's fine because the people who care will see that and go, awesome, that's the thing I know, and I get where they're going with all these different places, which is really awesome in that they managed to get that duality of a general audience appeal as well.
I agree. I think that it was a really good adaptation in that way. It's the way, I think this is how you adapt something.
Yes.
That isn't like super, super prescriptive in the adaptation, right?
Yes.
Like, so like Mortal Kombat's another good example.
Yeah.
Which did a pretty good job adapting something that doesn't really have a straightforward story.
No,
it's got like backstory for certain characters, but so like I think somebody's getting good at this.
Yeah,
I mean, my point.
At last.
Yeah,
I think the only thing I wanted to call out with cinematography and world building was that some of the elements they brought in, like the dragons, loved that. So there was like a movie from like I think it was 2000. We'll talk about it later.
For D&D.
For D&D. And it was just like, they were just generic dragons, right? Whereas in this, as in D&D, they all had their own personalities. And this is the one thing I know about Dungeons and Dragons, is that all the dragons are different. Like in media,
fat dragon.
Media, you just see like Smog everywhere. That's all it is. Whereas in this, like, there's one that shoots blades out of its mouth. There's a fat one that, you know what I mean? Like there are different varieties. Like, each one has its own personality, and I loved that.
Interesting.
The fat one, and we'll talk about an action scene. Let's talk about action, right? Because the actions. So that was probably my favorite action scene in the movie.
That whole sequence.
Yeah. So there's 2 or 3 big action scenes. There's one which we'll talk about now, which is they go into a dungeon.
Yes.
Roll credits. There is a secondary one. I'm trying to think of what the secondary one was. God, I've completely forgotten. Except for when she breaks in. I think that's a really nice scene as well.
Yeah.
There's obviously the big final fight scene at the end. There's another one. How am I forgetting this?
There's a lot of them.
Oh, the maze scene. That's what I'm thinking of. The maze scene too. But they start with where they find out to break into the vault, they need this helmet, which is magical.
Basically, there's like the vault is like this crazy spell that no one can get into, and they're like,
except someone who has this.
Yeah, he's like, I'll never be able to break. I'm not a good enough wizard. I'll never be able to do that.
He's great, by the way.
There's no way to do it.
I really liked him.
Unless we have this helmet of disillusionment or something that gets rid of any spell.
Yes.
And they'd be like, but it's a mythical thing. No one's ever knows where it went.
And the paladin has stored it in the one place no one would think to look, which is right in the heart of evil.
Yeah, it's like the underworld. I don't know.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's so good. It's called in Underdark, it's called. And they go through this big old quest to get down there. The one thing I did think, though, was, they found that staff that was like they could portal through.
The hither-tither.
Yes. It was like the portal game, literally what it was. That was a little bit convenient. You don't think?
Oh, to figure that out
at that exact moment.
No, for sure. That was convenient. But
the fact
also,
that they hadn't even looked at it that whole time.
It did look not like a stick.
Not at all.
Yeah.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Agreed.
No, I thought it was for sure. I was like, oh, that's for sure. That is convenient. I agree. But I also really like that as like a device to build into the heist later. I was like,
Sure.
wow, that's a really creative way for them to
Sure.
use in the heist. So I forgive them for that.
We haven't even talked about the order, because the Paladin Zhenk is part of an order that Chris Pine's character was originally part of, which is it's effectively doing
it's like Robin Hood shit.
Yeah, it's Robin Hood, literally that, doing good deeds and taking nothing from it.
Yeah.
And we find out there's a big twist for that later on. But when they go to ask Zhenk's character to, take them on this quest, he has to make a betrothal on the book or something. I find that
like he's pushed away. He's, what do they call them? The Harpers or something?
I think it's the Harpers.
And they're like, Robin Hood characters. Since for a long time, Chris Pine is not identified as that. And this, what do they call him? Zhenk character says, you're going to be a Harper again. Trust me. And he makes him swear on the book that you're going to give all the money back to the people. And he swears. It's kind of funny.
So they go down into the Underdark, which is fun in itself. It's got a lot of like trips, and they break a bridge and stuff. It's a lot of fun. And then they have what is actually a really well choreographed fight scene where Zhenk on his own takes out a bunch of like the Red Wizards.
Well, they were like death assassins. They were something else.
I think they're part of the same cult, but who knows? Somebody does. People are screaming at us right now, being like, "You fucking idiots!"
They're dead assassins. They're kind of like, they sound like the Nazgul.
A little bit. Let's call them Nazgul. Let's just annoy everyone.
What is dead can never die.
What I find fascinating is when they finally get to the end of it, and the fat dragon basically attacks them. It's great. It's a phenomenally fun scene.
Yeah,
and they get to use all the things they've just learned. They use the hither stick, whatever it's called.
Yep.
And then the final bit is when he uses his little match finger to explode them out of
it's like a fart joke, basically.
It's so good.
Yeah.
I love that. I hate fart humor, but that was fantastic. Yeah. What did you think of the maze scene? So they basically all get caught.
I was very Maze Runner. Look, fine.
Yeah, okay.
The creature was kind of freaky.
Creature was terrifying.
Yeah.
It's called a displacer beast, apparently. And it's effectively like a big leopard, and it's got these like tentacles that come out of it, and it can project itself.
Yeah.
Whoa, that was terrifying.
It reminded me of like the panther robot in, what is it? What's that robot dinosaur game?
What are you talking about?
Horizon Zero Dawn.
Okay.
The one that goes invisible.
I haven't seen that. Is that the second one?
The first one.
Is it? Okay.
It's like the Stalker or something.
Oh, of course.
It kind of reminded me of that. Anyway.
I think I remember playing that bit with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's interesting. That's a fun scene. There's a lot of references to stuff, like there was an old animated TV show in like the 80s of Dungeons and Dragons. And there's a bit when you see a character picking an axe. The first character who opens one of the chests and they pick an axe out. That whole crew is from that show.
Got it.
It's like, but as in real people playing those bits.
No, I get it. Yeah.
Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Did feel like he got a lot more like seeing like FaceTime in that scene than he should have.
Yeah, well, that's
what he was doing, and I was like, oh, that's weird.
Exactly
that makes sense.
Why. Yeah. I like the mimic. Mimic is a thing that you will see in everything now, but starting D&D all the way up to like Dark Souls. So it's like a chest, and as soon as you open it, it like attacks you. Do you remember that bit? And it's got like a big old mouth. Yeah. I thought the maze scene was fun. The bit where they had to jump through the acid.
Yep, the ice or whatever
it is. That was pretty terrifying.
I think all of it was really intense and fun, and
the stakes were
fantastic. And I love it, like every single time something goes wrong, he creates a new plan that kind of fucks them over. Yeah. It's like they're just extending their lease on life every single time it happens.
We'll talk about that.
Just barely.
That's one of my favorite bits about that character. He like when he gets called out and she's like, so you make a plan. And he's like, yeah. And then if the plan fails, I make another plan. She's like, so you make plans that fail. I was like, that's what I always wanted to hear someone say in one of these movies.
It's like,
you know what I mean?
Like the plan B. You mean plan C? No, we're plan C's off.
Plan D.
It's now plan D.
But plan D is plan A. All right.
Yeah, but it's off.
It's so good. Just touch on that. The CGI is pretty phenomenal in this, right? Like I don't think
it's like phenomenal. I think it's like, it just was like, it didn't take me out. It was cartoony in a good way when it was cartoony, and when it wasn't, it was good.
I'd say it's mostly done in daylight. So I think CGI usually works best when you have it in dark. So like you can kind of scrub over the flaws. Whereas this, like with the beast we were just talking about, the Displacer beast, like it was full daylight and it looked sick. It looked like a real panther. It was amazing.
Yeah, but I was more just like, it wasn't really like, I was just thinking like the dragon was like obviously goofy and artsy and cartoony.
I think it was meant to be,
but it was meant to be, so it wasn't bad.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk a little bit then about tones and themes. DL, what did you pick up in this? What were the key things for you?
Look, I think, parenthood is about being selfless.
Yeah.
Friendship is sacrifice. I don't know.
I mean, it kind of sticks very closely to some of those.
There's probably other ones. I didn't really think much about this one because there's a big twist we can't really talk about till the end.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
We'll get there. But I got fatherly love, the usual stuff. There wasn't.
But there's also something around like everybody makes mistakes and like you have to face them. Like
Sure.
you have to like be okay with the fact that you've done things that you regret, and how does that affect your? Yeah. I don't know what the theme is in that, but there's a lot of like facing yourself and what you and your flaws.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I would say that too. Okay, then what are your 3 best and 3 worst? What we like to do is like to give you guys 3 potential reasons, if you've not heard enough from us already, why you might want to see this non-spoiler free, and then 3 reasons why you might think about staying away from this, also spoiler free.
I would say humor and castings.
Yep.
In general, I put those in the
Agreed.
same bucket. Like the writing and the castings and the performances are really good. Fresh world and lore in a time where every franchise is like we just talked about in the news section. We only talked about 2, but the new Game of Thrones spinoff as well. 3 new franchises of old franchises. Like this is like a new potential franchise. There's a lot to go pull from here, and because of that, it's got its own feel and take, and it's really fresh. And then just like a really tightly written story with a few good twists. Yeah,
completely agree. I would say that my favorite scene by a long way in this movie was the graveyard scene. Like,
it's really good.
Like, it was so good that I had to call it out as like one of the best things about this movie. Yeah. Like, it's nonsense, but it works so well. It's fantastic. I also put the amount of nuance and love poured into this. I think it could have been really easy to go one of two ways. Either go full nerd culture, this is specifically for the people who play the games, no one else is going to understand this movie. Or it could have gone the other way, which is it's just for general audiences. Who cares about the people who actually care about this? And they managed to just get that balance perfectly right.
Yeah.
I was really thought it was awesome. And then I said, like you did, the humor. Like, it felt natural. It built characters beautifully. It just worked.
Yeah. I agree. I really like what you said. I probably would highlight that adaptation that aligns to both really diehard people and people that haven't seen it before or don't even know what it is. It's hard to do. And they did
really
a
hard
good job
to
of
do.
that.
Yeah.
What about your worst?
Hit me with your worst first.
Okay.
I just talked.
I love Hugh Grant, but I think that there was a little bit of a flimsy plot connection that I've already talked about. I think he did great. It wasn't about the performance. It wasn't about either of their performances. I think there was like probably a nifty little writing here or there. You change something to make that feel more believable.
Okay.
Of a setup for me. You get over it, obviously. Michelle Rodriguez, loved her. Would have liked to know more about her backstory. We keep hearing about like how she's this badass warrior. I'm like, who? Maybe I just missed it.
I would say they're saving more of that for like.
Yeah, but
sequels.
like, what is it? Right?
Well, they didn't see her clan. You thought they were going to see her clan at one point. I think they'll bring it into the sequel
for sure. They probably will. But I'm like, okay, like nitpicking here. And then my other point would be like, where's the sequel set up?
Wow.
There's obviously going to be a sequel, right? Like, where's the setup for this? I didn't get much of that. Well, it seemed like a happily ever after situation.
Well, I think there were lots of subtle plot threads. Like, so for example, the Red Wizard, and this isn't really a spoiler, the Red Wizard is doing all of this work at another wizard's behest, effectively.
Yeah, that's true.
Like,
that's true.
They could pluck him out of whatever afterlife he's in or whatever. Like, I thought there were little threads where they were like, yeah, I can see where they're like bringing in Michelle Rodriguez's like clan and stuff. There's
and
a lot
they barely
didn't
even
explore.
We didn't even talk about the.
Well, that's in spoilers. Let's wait for spoilers. That's a really good spoiler. We'll get there. So my 3 worst were, I thought, the wizard's plan was effectively a sky beam. I was like, come on, we've been doing this for 20 years now. Like, enough sky beams. We're over it. Like, stop it. Stop it.
It's smart, but it's effectively a sky beam, but it's more like a glass. It's like a get all. I liked it because it was like get them all here for their greed, their gluttony, and their desire to see blood. Yeah. And I'm gonna, turn them into spoilers.
Yeah, sure. Well, on that note, then my second was that I thought the Red Wizards in general, they were a bit paint by numbers. I didn't like outside of the cool action scenes that she was part of.
We don't know why they exist, really.
We don't know anything about them
because we know that like. They were created by the old Red Wizards, but it's like, why are these guys this way?
What's the point? Yeah.
Give us a little more background. They were very just villainy.
And my final one was there just wasn't enough Shank. I thought his character, that Drax character, was such a great counterpoint to Chris Pine. Like, he was the optimist. He was the like full of life one. He was the one who's always spitting quips, and you had this deadpan, super intelligent, like on another wavelength character, and they just the opposite wavelengths worked so beautifully.
Yeah, it was. It's good.
So what we do now is we don't have a rating system out of 5 stars out of 5. We don't talk about 3 dragons out of 6. What we do is we rank these movies based on whether they're better or worse than the most average movie that we can think of, which is and will always be potentially Aquaman 2018.
Hopefully.
DL.
Hopefully. Otherwise, we need a new rating system.
well, I'd be happy to change. Tell me, do you think this movie is better or worse than Aquaman 2018, and why?
It is very much better.
Absolutely.
The lead is better. Just saying something. Like, dude, because Momoa is good.
He's good in that movie.
I mean, he's just good in general. Like, so, like, Pine is better. He's a better lead in this movie. The writing's better.
Yeah, agreed.
There isn't even really a romantic thread in this.
I really like that. That was going to be one of
which
my
is actually
favorites.
A great point. Like, I didn't even think about that, but like, good.
Well,
for once, there doesn't need to be.
There's the little one kind of between.
Yeah, but it's not the main lead.
Doric and Simon, which I liked, and it was kind of like this little bubbling thing on the side that you didn't need to.
I wish they didn't even do that thing at the end that they did.
I don't think they needed to.
I think they could have just left it as is,
which we'll talk about.
Yeah.
I completely agree. This movie is way better than Aquaman 2018. It was so well written and had so much love for the source material. It in a way that Aquaman didn't. Like, don't get me wrong, Aquaman had some great comic booky elements, but I felt this took it to a whole new level. All right, then, shall we talk about spoilers?
Yeah, there's really only a few. Like,
yes,
the main thing is like one of the horns that they go and try and steal this stuff, right?
Yes,
and to go get the thing that brings his wife back, and they were conned into doing it
by the Red Wizard,
by not only like their Hugh Grant character who was going to fuck them over, but also he was double conned by the Red Wizard because there's another item in there that they needed, and they couldn't get in without the bard. That was a big point we didn't talk about. Only the bards, the people of this not the bard, the Harpers.
The Harpers.
Only the Harpers could get into this room.
Yes,
and so he kind of betrays his oath by doing it in the first place. That's one big thing. The other big spoiler has to do with our main character.
Yeah.
And Chris. It was a really well done.
I really liked it.
Like, twist that, like, I guess, like, it was more of a reveal, not like something that, like, that happened. It was like, we just learned that it happened in the past.
Yeah.
He actually ended up stealing. He's not supposed to steal from the people.
He's Robin Hood.
How about you try and explain this? Because I'm going to stumble through it.
Okay. I can give you my interpretation of it. So effectively, the story we get all the way through the movie is that he goes off on a mission and he offends the Red Wizards.
Yes.
And when he comes back, he finds that the Red Wizards have found out and they've gone and effectively murdered his wife.
Not only does he offend them, he takes one of them out or gets them imprisoned.
Yeah.
And so we're given an anecdote of like they killed his wife as a repercussion of his actions,
which
for
is
this
what we're led to believe
for this group that he's in, which is the Robin Hood group.
Exactly. But what actually happens is that during when he's bringing in this Red Wizard, he breaks his oath and steals some gold. He feels he should be getting something back
for all his hard
work he's doing.
For doing the right thing.
But doesn't realize that the gold has got magic attached to it, which leads the Red Wizards directly to his wife when he leaves it in the house. And the wife dies because of him. And that's his whole motivating factor. He wants to bring his wife back, not for the kid that they've got together, but actually for his own selfish purposes.
Well, it's for his own guilt, but it's also because his kid never knew his wife. She was too young.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's really for him. And I'd say that is the third twist, which at the end, it's not really a twist, but at the end of the movie,
the big battle
scene, we see Michelle Rodriguez.
And the Avengers Assemble.
Yeah, Avengers Assemble, big battle, really cool. The Michelle Rodriguez actually takes a mortal wound in this battle. And in the moment when they finally are victorious and he does get this tablet back that brings people back to life, he can see that really we didn't talk about how they grew. Basically, she helps raise his daughter through the years.
Yeah, the real mother figure.
She's the real mother figure. He sees that this daughter of his that he's kind of been failing this whole time doesn't really want her mom back. She wants her biological mom back. She wants the one that actually raised her back.
Which is really nice.
It is nice. And it's also like I guess he decides to...
He has to have a self...
Yeah, he has to sacrifice. He has to sacrifice not having his wife who he loves back.
Yeah.
For... to bring back, his
Completely.
daughter's real mom.
And I found that really affecting, and it was
really well written.
done.
Yeah.
I think one thing we sort of brushed over there was the kind of climax of this revolves around the Red Wizard, the thing she's stolen, this horn. She's not going to play the horn.
No.
But what happens is...
It's almost like a mead.
I don't understand how it works, but she effectively says a spell into the horn, and it opens up some sort of
death portal,
sky beam we talked about, which comes back down as cloud and turns people into zombies, effectively.
Basically turns them into more Red Wizards.
Red Wizards, okay. And the whole point is that the Red Wizard has... Well, she's manipulated Hugh Grant into bringing back this long-forgotten games in the city, which are really dangerous, and that's when they end up in the maze.
Yeah.
And effectively, the idea is just to get everyone together in this stadium so she can perform this spell and turn them all into more of her kind.
Yeah.
I found that really interesting, and all the juxtaposition around and the double crossing of Hugh Grant trying to steal from all the wealthy people who'd come to gamble on the games and throwing in like our lead characters at the last minute was just really nicely done. And it was all hijinks, and it was funny.
Yeah.
It just worked.
Yeah. No, it did. It was a really, really good ending, a really, really tight film.
I got to admit, though, I didn't really understand the Red Wizard's plan on a first watch. I feel like if I watched it again, I'd be like, oh, that's the thing I missed. But like trying to keep up with it and trying to keep up with everything that was going on.
I mean, like, I think it's pretty simple, though. I think you think it's more complicated than it is.
What was the horn?
The horn is just a relic that, like,
it?
they talk about it. It's just like a relic of the old, like, it's something they need. It's a curmuffin.
It's a MacGuffin, and it's a comeuffin. It's trying to bring back who I mentioned before, who was the Red Wizard who was in like a parallel dimension or in the shadows or whatever he was. I think that was part of it.
Like
but I was
the Lord of Death.
But I was like, why did he do it in the first place? I didn't really get that, and that's fine because I didn't need to really understand in the moment. I think that's something that could be explored in a sequel.
Yeah. I think it's just probably not that much depth to it. I think it was just a simple like bad guy creates bad guy. New bad guy reborn.
Yeah. Can we talk very quickly about the graveyard scene before we move on?
Oh, we can. I actually, going back to that, you're right. There is that's more in the lore. I think you're right. There's a realm that has been taken over by the Red Wizards, and they're trying to expand their empire.
Right, that's it.
That's what it is. Anyway, sorry.
And he's trapped in there, and he's trying to get out. That makes way more sense. So my favorite scene in the movie by like quite a long way, I would say, and I think it's actually spoiled in the trailers, which sucks. Is
I didn't see it in the trailer. I only watched the first one too.
Right. So to get the helm that we talked about, to get into this vault, the only people who knew where it went were part of this huge battle, right? And a bunch of them have all been dead and buried for however many hundreds of years. And they've got like a coin with like an inscription on it that the wizard can say to these people, and they can ask them 5 questions.
So you can bring people back from the dead only to ask them 5 questions.
Yes, but they can never bring them back in after that.
Yeah, it's over.
And it's so humorous and it's so well done. Like Chris Pine just stumbling over the questions.
Classic, like accidentally asked 5 questions that he didn't want to ask and waste the first like death. Like when Aladdin accidentally waste the first wish.
The thing about that is I feel it could have been really tropey and really like poorly done, but they just nailed it.
No, it's just funny.
Just good writing.
It's funny. It's like a cut by cut sequence of like them going through it like 10 different times
to try and find the right person.
And they like forget to give a question for they forget to close the question loop on the last guy. It's a bit of a dick move.
That's great. And I even said at the time to who I went to watch it with. I went to watch it with 2 of the friends of the show, and they were like, "Oh, is there going to be a post credit scene?" And I was like, "Gonna be the guy in the graveyard. It's got to be him. Like, who else could it be?" Yeah, it was like a mid credit thing. It was just him still
talking to himself.
Still sat there talking. Yeah, there's a good bit of trivia about that. I'll come back to in a minute. Anything else before we wrap up?
No, I think that's it, man. I think it was a really, those are the twists. They were really well done. They were earned.
They were so earned.
Yeah. And
we didn't talk about a lot of things like the heist, trying to get into the horse and carriage.
That was the coolest little heist. That's the word I was looking for earlier. It was well architected, creatively done. Like you felt like, wow, actually not anybody could have figured that out. That was really smart of them.
So like, just to give that premise then. So they realize they have to steal. What are they trying to steal out of there? I can't even remember. They're trying to steal something out of a moving carriage, and instead of really simply just trying to break in or whatever, or just firing,
they're trying to create a portal. It's because they realize they can't get the head. Basically, they get the whole like helmet to pretty much get into the vault by avoiding the spell. But what he fails to tell everyone is that the wizard's actually shitty and can't attune to the helmet.
Yes.
And so it's like their plan B is like, okay, fair enough. We've got this helmet for no reason. We'll just sneak the hither into the cell and create a portal in between.
I really liked his arc, actually, Simon's arc, of
good.
having to realize he was worthy. Apparently, the wizard he sees, who's his grandfather in whatever realm, while he's trying to connect with the helmet, is like big in D&D. I obviously have no idea, but like that whole arc of him just realizing that he is worthy, I really liked that. It was really nicely done.
Yeah.
But just that high scene very quickly, instead of just putting a portal on the side of like a tree and then one on the side of the thing and going through the carriage going through, they did this really awesome, like, just nonsense like plan where they put like a portal on like a picture frame, and they put the picture frame on the underside of the carriage because they realized that they would be looking for people trying to get in, not of the cell, the prison, whatever it is, not trying to get out.
Yeah.
And I love that idea that they wanted to sneak in a picture frame into there, have a portal on one side and one in there. So interesting.
No, it's really good. It was
really well
good.
done. Really well done. All right. DL, would you like a little bit of true or false trivia?
Of course I would.
Fabulous. All right. True or false, DL? Renee Jean Page, which I'm now going to say that way forever, actually improvised the scene where Zhenk steps over the boulder.
True.
It is true. He barely even broke stride. So this is what I was talking about before. Zhenk effectively finishes his quest, shall we say, part of the quest with the team. Yeah. And he just sort of goes, that's me. I'm done. No more from me. And he just walks in a direction. And there's like this great weird commentary by Chris Pine where he's sort of saying, and he's going to keep walking in a straight line. And there's a boulder. He's going to go around the boulder. No, he just goes over. It's so well done. It's beautiful.
It is good.
The fact it's improvised is lovely as well. All right. True or false, DL? In the Australian edit of the film, the comedy group Aunty Donna provide the voices of the corpses in the graveyard. Do you know Aunty Donna?
No, so I'm just shooting from the hip. False.
It's actually true. Aunty Donna are amazing. They're absolutely hilarious. I'd highly recommend anyone go check them out. They've got a show on Netflix. They've got a new one coming out. I think it's on SBS. It's wild. Okay. It's comedy, but it's that kind of comedy that's just like, it's almost improv-y. Like it's to the point where, and like their shows are like almost total improv. It's really fun. It's kind of I'd say it's a little bit of a, I feel like if you like it, you'll really like it. If you don't, you probably really won't. Like it's one of those where you've got to be into it, but I love them. I think they're hilarious. Two more bits of True or False trivia, DLN. So true or false? This is the 5th Dungeons and Dragons film. True or is that false?
This is the 5th. False.
It's a false, but it's the 4th Dungeons and Dragons film. It's actually technically a reboot. There was a trilogy between 2000 and 2012, which there's a really, really fascinating piece of trivia on. If you go and watch one of Mr. Sunday Movies YouTube videos, who we've basically stolen our podcast from, he does like a whole thing about the original Dungeons and Dragons movies. Bloody Jeremy Irons is in it. Like it's got this wild, like it's complete nonsense, but
it's got this crazy cast of characters.
Yeah, the story behind it of how the guy who ended up directing it got the rights to it, fascinating. Just classic sales. Just calls someone up, makes one relationship, builds and builds and builds, and eventually throws his favor in there. Can I make a Dungeons and Dragons movie?
Oh wow,
really, really good. Finally, then DL. Oh, we've already told you this. I can't even do my file biz. I was going to say the characters from the animated Dungeons & Dragons 1983 TV series actually make an appearance, which we talked about. They did. So you got 3 out of 4 there, DL. Well done,
Thank you, man.
Ultimately, this was such a fun movie. I think I even text you immediately after I've seen it, been like, just go and see this. Like, it's so much fun.
I think you said, I don't remember if you texted me that it's fun. You just said, we should do this.
Okay.
Just generally. Actually, it's hit or miss. Sometimes that means it's terrible when you send me that text.
I like to trick you, DL. We haven't done a bad movie in far too long. I feel like it's a bad time. Would you like to wrap up the show with a bit of correspondence, DL?
Of course. Do it.
Any from your end?
Nothing from my end, no.
I mentioned we had a bunch of reactions to the Marvels trailer, and we have a few. So we have friend and regular collaborator of the show, Dick Staines.
Yes.
Thank you, Dick Staines. We appreciate your love. We do. By the way, you can hit us up at Podcast Assemble on Instagram or thepodcastassemble@gmail.com, or just go to the website, www.podcastassemble.com. All the stuff's there. You can contact us directly through that. Richie Staines, he says, it looks like a big swing. And he says it's going to be interesting to see how the switching goes and whether it gets annoying. I think I stole that earlier.
No, that is fair. I didn't
fair.
think about the annoying thing, but I think it could create comedic situations.
I wonder how long it'll last.
It could get stale fast, to his point.
I'm fascinated to know because there is a scene within the trailer where you see the three Marvels all having like a little scuffle, right?
Yeah,
so they're all attacking each other. Now, what would be interesting is if in that scene, let's say hypothetically they're using their powers and they're just switching places. So let's say Ms. Marvel's trying to fight Maria Rambeau. Maria Rambeau is trying to fight Captain Marvel. And Captain Marvel's trying to fight Ms. Marvel. So we're thinking, but they just keep switching and they're like, wait, who am I fighting?
Yeah, that's for sure
going to be fun.
That's for sure going to happen.
That could be quite fun.
What you just described is definitely a scene in that movie.
Okay, all right, good. So we also got more on this. So we got a friend of the show, Joe, who says he just doesn't know. He thinks it could be crap, which I think is a great way of looking at this.
I mean, of course.
We've got two polarizing
That's like a pretty easy statement to make, though, about Marvel these days. It's
completely.
Like one in every two.
Well, I think this sums up my feelings nicely. Friend of the show, MJ. Thank you, friend of the show, MJ. First time hearing from you. Lovely to hear from you. Says, am I keen on it? No. Would I watch it in cinemas? Most likely. Yeah. Like, that's how I feel about it.
It's like so ridiculous.
It's nonsense. All right, DL, do you have any correspondence?
I do have some correspondence. The boys, when we were discussing Harry Potter, one of them poses the question to the pod, do you think that Hermione Granger will be cast as African? African American? I guess it wouldn't be. It would have to be English. Yeah, I guess. Well, do you think
a black actress would be?
Do you think you'll have a black actress as Hermione Granger?
Why specifically her? Why not any of the other characters?
Well, I guess I can tell you the context of the group chat, but the reason it is proposed, I think, if you look at historically, is because J.K. Rowling has notably said, I never labeled Hermione. If you read the text, it doesn't say her skin color. And she's got big bushy hair. So it almost like she kind of said, but didn't say that like she envisioned her as black, which is like really, really convenient for her to say in this like woke culture of diversity. Yeah. But it's like you also yesed the casting of
Hermione Granger,
Emma Watson. You yesed the illustrations in the book that indicate like a white girl. Stop it. Like, but my point is, what do you think? I think it's a fair question.
I do think if you look at the new Hogwarts or Legacy game, how much extra diversity they are fitting into that world.
Yeah.
Like even at a time where it didn't really make sense for it to be that diverse, having
in 1800
Indian and black characters. Yeah, like don't get me wrong, like I love it. Great. I'm all for more diversity and like yeah, absolutely. Please make it any. The only one I say maybe not would be maybe Ron because he's like full redhead.
But
Ron. Like Harry, I don't care. Make him black. Who cares? Like you get the right actor. Like you give me another like what's his name, Daniel Radcliffe. Like I'm just not going to watch it.
I think
it's just
Harry
give me the best actor for the job.
The Harry casting could be the most influential on whether or not like this is very, very different.
Yeah.
If they fuck that up, it's kind of because like people do like Daniel Radcliffe,
right?
So like I think that
interesting. I mean, I'm not against that. Like good, like awesome. Like if I know a lot of people grew up with those films. I think growing up with the books over the films, when I watch him, I struggle to relate to him as that character.
That's not nostalgia. What I meant to say was like the way the character they could go the most different with, I think, would be Harry Potter. And they could pick someone very different, like in attitude and personality.
Well, they won't because Daniel Radcliffe will be his dad in the flashback scenes. We've already talked about.
Because like no shit, like the most important casting in Harry Potter is Harry Potter. That was not astounding. Like, that was not really profound. But
the interesting, the thing I find most interesting is that in those movies, the original ones, they cast Lavender Brown for the first 3 or 4 as a black actress. Like it is a black actress all the way through, and then when they get to a movie where she's actually a semi-pivotal character, where she has
Are you sure?
She's Ron's love interest.
I thought that
they change her race.
I thought
to white.
that character was in it the whole time.
Nope.
You positive? You sure you're not? You sure you're not confusing the Patels?
No, I know exactly this, and it's a big point of contention. It's a big point of contention.
Who's he in IMDb?
Anyway, GL. Do you want to wrap up the show? Thank you, everyone, for your correspondence. We love it when you stick this
Wait,
long.
So they made Lavender Brown the one brown person?
Well, that's why it's a point of contention. So, thank you for sticking around, guys. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Wrap the show up.
I will. Until Next time, Team Squad.
We'll be a century next time.
We will be a century. Our 100th episode. Be sure to tune in. We'll figure something out. We'll
do
be
something
great.
special.
Might be great.
It could be amazing.
Give us a 5-star review until then. And thank you to the friend of the show, Mr. Matthew Bliss of Bliss3.fm for editing this episode. If you are a budding podcaster and are thinking of hiring an engineer to edit your podcast, edit. You will need it. Trust me.
Trust me. He's good.
If you need anyone, I mean, if you're anything like me, you will need an editor. Like I get edited. I get censored more often than I get edited. And I get a lot of both. Let him know by email. Send him an email at info@bliss3.fm. Or visit bliss3.fm for more information about Madness Podcast Services. He's also got a video game podcast. I don't know if it's been happening lately. If it is, check it out. The Dead Drop, 10-minute episodes, twice a week. And you'll get a little video game
Matt is moving countries, so he is going to be very busy for a little while.
Fair enough. You may not get your video game fix. I was doing the heroin slap.
Well, you're still waiting for the You're still waiting for his on Resident Evil, aren't you?
Dude, the game is so good, Matt. What are you waiting for? Give us your review. Thank you, Tommy.
Thank you, DS.